Take a look at this knife. It's a very unusual knife. I've never seen one like it.
I'm just saying a coincidence is possible.
And I say it's not possible.
Where did that come from?
Every time I watch a movie or a TV show, I always find myself wondering, how did they write this particular story?
You got me.
I often go into a daydreaming state about the writing journey. Where did the writer get this idea? How did they decide on the characters' actions? And how did they orchestrate that plot twist? Trying to guess the entire story, starting all the way from a single idea. I just like to imagine a Charlie Kaufman sitting in his room struggling to adapt a screenplay. And then he immediately thought to write about his own writing struggle as the story.
We open on Charlie Kaufman, fat, old, bald, repulsive, sitting in a Hollywood restaurant across from Valerie Thomas.
And that is where he got his idea for his film adaptation. In this video, I want to show you the final output of my daydreams on the movie The Prestige. There are three writers who are behind the story of The Prestige that we see in the movie. The Nolan brothers, who wrote the screenplay of The Prestige, while Christopher Priest is the author of the original book, also called The Prestige. From here on out, everything I am about to say might be true or not. I never talked to these people. I don't know how exactly they wrote the story, since I also couldn't find any references where the writer talks about their writing process. I had to guess the entire story from scratch. So remember, these are not facts, only my guesswork. Now, I am going to start guessing how they probably wrote The Prestige. Let's start with the idea. What is the idea? Most ideas are very simple. For this story, the idea could come from something as simple as a magic trick or a magician. Maybe the writer is very fascinated with magicians. Maybe he frequently went to watch the magic shows with his dad when he was little, and he decided to write a story around a magician's life. We now have the story about a magician. Every story needs conflict and drama. So let's make him a struggling magician. A story about a struggling magician. What could be the reason for his struggle? Maybe his magic shows are not performing well. Maybe no one is coming to see his magic tricks. Why is no one coming to see him? Maybe there is someone else in town who is selling better tricks. Another magician? Everyone is going to that other magician, which starts the rivalry between two magicians. And we got the idea. A story about the rivalry between two magicians. Two magicians competing for greatness. Before we continue ahead, let's take a small detour back into the details within the idea. A magician. A magician performs a magic trick. How does he perform a magic trick? Are there any actual principles you need to follow? How do you start and how do you execute it? Is there a step-by-step process to perform a magic trick? Well, after some brainstorming and research, it leads the creator to this.
Every magic trick consists of three parts, or acts. The first part is called the pledge.
The detour is done. Back to the idea. The rivalry between two magicians. Where do we go from here? When writing, the writer always strives for more conflict. Here, the conflict is within the idea, the rivalry. So, we focus on the rivalry itself. What kind of rivalry will it be? And how powerful can we make it? When it comes to interpersonal conflicts, the most powerful is the most personal. If people are generally close, then the rivalry for each other would be more personal and a more intense rivalry. So the two magicians could be brothers, friends, or co workers. There you go, co working magicians. So we know there will be a rivalry. But how does it start? It has to begin somewhere because of an intense and conflicted event, probably. We also call this the inciting incident. The writer will wonder about this exact question: how to start their enmity. What would be that one incident which will trigger this competition to their possible deaths? Alright, let's brainstorm some intense and dramatic events that could trigger this rivalry. One magician embarrassed the other one, which is not that intense. A physical fight between the two magicians, still not dramatic enough. One magician kills the other, but if that happens, the story ends right here. What if one magician killed someone close to the other magician, like his mother, children, or wife? Jackpot? Still no. Because this would be a totally different story. It will be a direct revenge story where one magician will want to kill the other for killing his wife, and the story would be over in less than 30 minutes, and there would be no competition. What if he did kill his wife only accidentally but not intentionally? That way, the other magician wouldn't want to kill him right away, but still wishes he was dead. This kind of situation will fuel their animosity towards each other. The other magician will slowly start resenting him, and in the end, he may be even, you know. Okay, we have the magicians, Angier and Bordon. They are co workers, so they have a boss magician, Cutter, and they both help perform magic tricks with Mr. Cutter in a magic show. Angier is the normal one, charming and disciplined. Borden is the weird one, edgy and unpredictable. They are kind of opposite in personality, which is how any writer would write it. So, to create the inciting incident, someone has to be responsible. Well, obviously, it has to be the weird one. For Borden to cause this thing, there needs to be a real flaw in his character that will help lead to it. And what will that flaw be? If someone is going to die because of his flaw, it would have to be a dangerous one. For a magician, that flaw is probably to try more dangerous tricks, even they could be fatal. A perfect setup that could lead to something terrible. What is this dangerous trick? Then comes the knot element. Now, the writer deciding on the knot thing is not really significant to the story. It is just a tool for storytelling. This action could be easily replaced by a whole other different thing that is part of the magic trick, and it would still work, just like in the book where Borden pushes Angie's pregnant wife off the stage instead of tying the wrong knot. This knot element will put Angie's wife in a rather dangerous situation intentionally by the writer so it could lead to her death, which would start the conflict and the story. And of course, the dangerous knot fails. Angie's wife dies in the most terrible way, drowning in front of her helpless husband. They wrote this to be most tragic because the worse way she dies, the more intense Angie's trauma will be. What would the characters be doing right now? Angier, he would be in deep sorrow, of course, keep remembering and keep reliving the traumatic event and mourning his wife. And Borden would be feeling guilty for his obvious mistake and regret that he shouldn't have tied that knot and feeling sorry for his kind of friend. Now, Julia's funeral will probably happen, where Angier bids farewell to his wife, and in his grief, shift his focus entirely towards Borden. Borden should probably attend the funeral because he is genuinely sorry. And the writer would think the funeral scene could be where the forced confrontation can take place, setting the stage for Angie's hate towards Borden. Borden, he might carry that guilt for a while. However, Borden is ambitious, After some time, he will be moving on with his life, and mainly his magic career. He is separate now, he doesn't have any support, so he would be struggling to make his own magic shows. What else could happen in his life? What else can happen? He could meet a woman, and it goes really well because Borden is a nice guy. After some time, his relationship might get serious as the wife gets pregnant. Borden keeps talking about his greatest trick that will shock the world. Now, where is that coming from a writer's standpoint? Well, the story is about a magician's life. If you are creating a magician's story, you would want him to gradually get better and better in magic, and in the end, he should probably be one of the greatest magicians. This is similar to other stories as well. If you are watching a movie about a race car driver, you want to see him drive much faster in the end than he was in the beginning. You wouldn't want to see him perform poorly the entire film, unless it is a character study about the worst race car driver. So, to become the greatest magician, he needs to have the greatest trick that will make him great. Does that make sense? Well, how do you go about writing this greatest magic trick? We will come back to this later. What is going on with Angier? Still drowned in sorrowful and dark thoughts about his wife, and having haunted flashes of Borden tying the fateful knot. But mainly, all his anger is turned towards Borden, wanting to confront him, punch him, and hurt him. So, what would he do now? While he keeps raging about Borden, he would probably hear about Borden's own magic show and see it as the perfect opportunity to confront him, humiliate him, and maybe even sabotage his tricks.
Bell rings, ladies and gentlemen.
Borden begins his show and arrives at his bullet catch trick.
What you came for, is it?
Or could be any other magic trick really. He needs a volunteer. Someone's come up, and it is Angier. Because we can't track the story. Angier, as soon as he finds out about the bullet catch trick, he plans something. As a magician, he knows how the trick exactly works, and as the volunteer, he will definitely mess up the trick. Borden now sees it is Angier who is pointing the gun. What will Angier do now? The main reason he is here. Confronts him about the knot,
Which knot did you tie, Borden?
and then shoots him in built up rage. But his trusty business partner reflects the gun because the movie should last longer than 20 minutes. It hits Borden's fingers, he goes on with the injury, and his wife attends to his injury. Okay, now what? Angier kind of got his revenge for now, so he'll focus on his magic career. And Kata will probably step in to help with his new show, The Great Denton. How will that play out? He got a new name, he needs new tricks he can sell, and his engineer will probably help him with that. This new trick in the story is making a pigeon disappear in a cage. How does the writer come up with this? Well, with a little research, he could have chosen any other trick and it would still work in this scenario. The writer could have simply selected the rabbit out of the hat trick and made Carter to explain the specifics of the trick in a montage and finally perform on the stage. The choice of which specific magic trick the writer chooses to put in the story only matters with the transported man. Again, we will come back to this. After much preparation, Angier would be getting ready to perform his new act for the audience. In the meantime, what could Borden be doing? He is still moving on in his life with a couple of magic tricks, and his relationship should probably get strong with time. Maybe finally decides to do his greatest magic trick. Then he probably hears about his old friend's new show. Soon enough, he immediately gets filled with thoughts of getting back at Angier for blowing up his finger. Now the writer would enthusiastically put Borden in the audience in a disguise, the same he did with Angier. And the show begins. Borden will want to sabotage Angier's act to get back at him. As a smart magician, he probably figures out the weakness in the trick. And this time, the volunteer is Borden. Again, we can't track the story. Borden retaliates. Now, the conflict between them is stronger than ever. What does Angier and Borden are thinking now? Both minds are probably occupied with similar thoughts. Angier still hating Bordon and wants to get back at him, and wants to excel in his own career more than Bordon. The same goes for Bordon. What's next? What is left? Bordon's greatest magic trick. Here, the greatest magic trick is the transported man. But why did the writer chose this particular trick? My guess is there is probably no big reason behind it. It could just be his favorite magic trick that he decided to write a whole story around it. The writer just needed a big mysterious magic trick that will cover most of the main plot, so he chose this one. That being said, the transported man is one of the most popular magic tricks. You can find many versions of it. Maybe he got it from here. So he basically took one of the greatest magic acts. Someone vanishes, the audience are surprised, and they reappear in a completely different place. Now the writer chose this specific setup with the two doors to present this act. Let's see how this transported man can be written. There are two doors. The magician stands in front of the first door. He throws a ball towards the second door, closes the door, and comes out of the other door almost immediately and catches the ball. A bit too fast. There is a 2-second gap from when the first door closes and the other one opens. Covering that distance in such a short time is physically impossible. It just took him hardly 2 seconds to reach the second door. So, how does he get from here to here realistically? It is physically impossible to do that in 2 seconds. Also, there is nowhere to run as the doors are in the middle of the stage. If he can't run, what can he do? A secret mechanism perhaps? Maybe there is a mechanical rail system beneath the stage that he can drop into, which quickly propels him to the other side in a fraction of seconds. Still, for him to close the door, use the propeller thing, get to the other side, climb up, and then come out the door. That would take him at least an extra 5 to 8 seconds in the best case scenario. We can conclude that he can't reach there in time. So, the realistic logic is it has to be someone else entirely that comes out the second door. Another magician is standing behind the second door that looks exactly like the magician that went in. This is the physically realistic possibility. This magician needs a perfect look-alike. He can go out and find a stranger that will look very similar to him. But a stranger to look exactly the same is almost impossible. The writer can still make it work as it is only fictional. Another obvious option that is more dramatic is a twin brother. Most writers will prefer this option because drama. The first brother goes in, the other brother comes out. So, Bordon has a twin brother. Now we know how Bordon's greatest trick is performed. He will probably announce his new show by putting up posters of the transported man. Upon seeing that, Angier will eagerly attend in a disguise. Bordon nails the trick. Angier is now more obsessed than ever. Bordon's trick is better than anything he has ever seen. Angier is now consumed with thoughts of how did he do it? He would be so obsessed that he refuses to think logically. He wants to know how the same Bordon comes out the other end. Mr. Cutter tries to give him a realistic approach, but that wouldn't get to him because he thinks that Bordon got this amazing illusion that no one has. And why does he think that? You tend to think outside the box when you're dealing with feelings like envy and jealousy. What else? He wants to do the same trick. He wants to do it better. He decides to use a body double because he can't wait. The double comes, they groom him, and then they perform the trick. Here, the writer could just let Angier succeed and be satisfied. But then, there would be no conflict. The rivalry would end, and the story would also end. The rivalry has to continue. There is always a catch. The writer will now think of ways to make Angier dissatisfied with the trick, even though he could perform it. Maybe Angier couldn't enjoy the audience applause at the end. The double starts making demands, and he is also getting drunk. The writer is creating these limitations to the trick intentionally So it will keep Angier obsessing over the illusion of the great Bordon. Since the trick is not satisfying enough, he is back on Bordon's obsession. He is still so obsessively curious that he would want to know the secret by any means. How will he really find the secret though? I mean, if you look at it logically, to discover Bordon's secret, you have to get very close to Bordon. Since Angier can't do it directly, he needs an insider to be behind the scenes at Bordon's show. So, he sends his PA. She steals the secret and gives it to Angier. But the writer wouldn't make it that easy. We need to put more drama. So now, he needs a keyword to unlock the trick in the diary. What would Borden be thinking now? Before we continue ahead, let's take another tiny detour into a different part of the writer's psyche. The writer's intention for the story is the hate towards each other should always be increasing over and over until it reaches the end of the line. Because you would slowly increase the conflict as the story progresses. Both are magicians, and both want to excel themselves in their careers while destroying the other one. You can see a very linear pattern of one magician sabotaging the other. But each sabotage keeps getting worse one after the other. Borden messes with Angier, then Angier does something worse, and the cycle repeats. So the writer is always trying to find something to throw. He will try to find something in Angier's character actions that can be thrown at Borden, and vice versa, which forms a straightforward pattern to write the story. So now, a better question is not what would Borden be thinking now. It is what would Borden throw at Angier. Angier copied his trick. And also trying to steal his secret.
He wants me to come and work for you and steal your secret.
Well, he now would want to mess with Angier's act. He probably finds a way to mess with the double, as he is integral for Angier's trick, which he does successfully. Now, what would Angier throw at Borden? It has to be something worse. Angier is now more obsessed than ever. He would want to do something better. He still doesn't know Borden's trick. He is desperate to know the keyword. He will do anything extreme to get that keyword. If Angier wants the keyword that only Borden knows, which means, again, he must get it from Borden directly. But Borden will not just tell him. So, Angier need to force him to reveal the secret. To do that, one needs leverage. There are many ways to get leverage, but the quickest and a more conflicted way is to kidnap someone close and ask for ransom. Angier could kidnap someone close to Borden. Angier is not that insane to touch his daughter or wife. Not yet. The only other person remaining is Borden's engineer. So he kidnaps him cleverly, demands for the keyword,
Your secret? My secret.
and Borden gives it to him. The keyword is Tesla. Why is there a Tesla in the story? Now it's time for another major detour. During the writing process, there will come a point for the writer to think of a new magic act for Angier that will be better than Borden's to move the story forward. Borden already has the transported man, the greatest magic trick. For Angier's arc to continue, he needs something even more impressive. An act that has to be better than the greatest magic trick. But how can another magic trick outdo something that is already the greatest? At critical moments like these, the writer usually goes back to basics, back to where it all started. A magician. A magician performs a magic trick. A magic trick. A magic trick is an act that appears supernatural but is achieved through trickery and illusion. If we remove the trick, we are left with just magic. Then, what is actually magic? Magic is an act that can actually manipulate natural or supernatural forces. Magic trick is practical and realistic. Magic is supernatural and fictional. One is magic, the other is a trick. But wait, what if we can do both? This is a story that has both magic tricks and real magic. To beat Bordon's greatest magic trick, Angier's version of the transported man has to be something other than a magic trick. It should be the greatest act that depicts real magic. Depiction of real magic. This means you can probably perform the transported man with real magic. You can do it without any tricks or illusions. An act that transports a person from one place to a different place for real. This is a critical brainstorming period where the writer is shaping up the whole story. Now we have to create a real magic act. Let's see how Angier's transported man can be written. In literary and cinema, there are two popular ways you can depict magic. The first is fantasy, by using magical wands and mystical spells. And the second way is science fiction, where seemingly impossible phenomena are explained through advanced technology. The Prestige story is obviously set in a real world in the Victorian era. The writer chose science fiction to keep the story grounded instead of casting magical spells. As you know, a flying car feels more realistic than an evil witch flying on a broomstick. Through the use of science fiction, the writer will create Angier's transported man that will transport a person from one place to another place in a second. How can we make this process work? We need a setup to showcase the magic act, just like Bordon's two doors. The first obvious thing that came to my mind is teleportation. So that means there should be a teleportation device, a brightly lit machine that can take a person from one place to a different place. The magician goes in, teleports, comes out of the other end. That's it. Where is the conflict and drama? The writer will make the device work, but adds more complications to the trick. He will basically come up with different complications for the operation of the machine. Let's brainstorm. The man gets weaker and weaker every time he teleports. The man will forget everything after the trick, but that would mess up the act. We need it to work. The man gets teleported to random places. Again, the act wouldn't work. The man gets cloned, but the clone is abnormal. Again, after some deep storming, the writer decides that the machine will create a perfect clone and teleports it. This way, the trick would perfectly work even with the complication. But what to do with the complication? The answer is dark. Well, he can't keep the clone alive. More clones will be created with every act. He can't even try hiding them, because if they do get out, the secret would be exposed. So, there is only one thing he can do. He must kill every clone, every single night. Now that we established Angier uses a teleportation device, how does he obtain it? If there is a device like this out there, someone needs to build it. Since this is science fiction, a scientist would build it. Maybe a famous scientist. Maybe it is Einstein. But that is too cliche. So, Tesla it is. Also, he is likely the writer's favorite pick. Tesla will create a machine that will teleport a person for real. He is introduced into the lives of Angier and Bordon. That ends the big detour. Going back to that question, why did Bordon say Tesla? That comes to the main question. What could Bordon throw at this moment? Bordon knows Angier is very obsessed with finding the secret behind his trick. Well, he is not going to reveal his real secret. So, what would he throw? He will give him a fake keyword. Something really absurd that leads Angier into a wrong rabbit hole. From Bordon's perspective, Tesla is a meaningless distraction. I mean, Bordon could also throw a wild theory that his magic trick is actually created with witchcraft that manipulates the audience. Maybe. But that is a different story. Since the writer has already decided that Angier will discover actual magic as per to the normal magic trick of Bordon, that fake keyword leads to the real magic plot. This is just a convenient but clever coincidence made by the writer. Angier is at Tesla. He will ask him to build the machine, and Tesla will probably build it because the writer makes it. Angier takes the machine home and performs his greatest magic act. And of course, Borden will attend. Angier nails the act. There are two Angiers now, and one has to be killed for the act to work. The new Angier has to do the prestige, so the one on the stage will be killed, and so he will be. Now, what would Borden be thinking? He obviously wants to know how he did it. So he attends the show again to find out. And that question comes up again. The writer would think, now what could Angier throw at Borden? Well, Angier knows Borden would definitely come to discover the trick. When Borden does come to discover the trick, what would he find? He would find a clone that is being drowned. What could Angier use in this scenario to throw something at Borden? Well, it is a tricky situation for Borden. He is literally at the wrong place at the wrong time. After some quick brainstorming, the writer would think Angier will definitely use this vulnerable situation to trap Borden. Him being present at the exact place where the clone is dying, it could very much look like a crime scene where he could be accused of murder and get sent to jail. So he does. The prestige Angier is alive and happy. As he allegedly died, he needs to change his identity.
Dear God. I'll look at her.
What would Angier be thinking now? Is this enough? Borden went to jail. He might even be hanged. Is it enough for his wife's death? His only family? No. Does Borden have a family? A daughter. So he goes after his daughter. He goes to the prison to let Borden know that he stole his daughter, because that is the point of revenge, to rub it in their face and let them know that they succeeded. Angier won. Thinks Angier. At one point, Angier hands his diary to Borden. Borden got Angier's diary, and Angier got Borden's from before. The story is narrated through reading each other's diary, which is a pretty cool storytelling device. How did the writer think of this? The story is about two magicians trying to outperform and do better than the other. Each magician is so invested in what the other one is doing. One guy will want to know the other person's secrets. And where does one keep their secrets? Well, a diary. What will happen next? Borden is going to die by hanging. Borden meets with his business partner as he is the only person left in his life, his engineer. Let's go back. The writer has made a deliberate choice that the identical double would be a twin brother to create more drama and a richer story. But how could this work? Only one can show up in public and the other has to be kept a secret. To keep the other one a secret, you need to hide him completely from the public eye, and no one should know that he exists. So, how would you hide the twin? You can try hiding one twin in the basement, and the other can live free in the outside world as Borden. But there is one flaw in this. The one in the basement won't be happy that he should be the one that has to stay inside. So they switch. One will stay in the basement for one day, and the next day he can go live Borden's life. Even if the story plays out like this, there is another bigger problem. If the twin is literally hiding in a basement, Angier, being as obsessed as he is, would have found the secret to Borden's trick much earlier in the plot. That means you can't hide him at any random place. It would be too easy for Angier to stalk and discover him. One twin can't just hide. They have to stay together somehow without any suspicion. But people will notice the resemblance immediately. To avoid getting recognized as a twin, one of them has to look different. so he will disguise himself. One twin will change how he looks. And if they are staying close to each other, they need a logical explanation for why they are always in each other's company, so it makes sense to everyone around them, including Angier. It can't be a personal relationship. It is too risky, so it will be a professional one. Either Bordon's PA or his engineer. There you go. One is Bordon and the other is the engineer. Will this work? Still, probably not. This will have the same problem as the basement one. One of them can't hide forever. So they switch their lives between Borden and Fallen. Of course, that could get really complicated. There are going to be differences of how each twin experiences life as Borden, and that kind of life ends up with a dead wife. Now, one twin remains free while the other is dead by hanging. This is the end, the last show off. The twin Borden and Angier meet. What are they going to talk about? They still don't know each other's secrets. The audience don't know either. And that is what they will talk about. All the mysteries, sacrifices, and the lengths they went in order to destroy each other are revealed. Borden's own brother is dead because of Angier. Now, what would Borden throw at Angier?